This video is specifically for people who are having crashing issues while playing Enshrouded, whether they get the dreaded Minidump error or not. I've included several of the fixes recommended by the official Discord, and several other common fixes for the game. If none of these work, I would suggest going to the official Discord before following any of the older videos from last January, as many of the solutions and many of those are either outdated or have absolutely nothing to do with the game or how it's run, and can actually cause the issue to be harder to diagnose. If you already have watched some of those older videos and put your system in Windows 8 or Windows 7 compatibility mode, please turn this off, as if it worked, you wouldn't be here, and it could skew or affect the results of the following steps. I have included chapters for specific issues and fixes for ease of access, but if you're having an issue, I do suggest that you start from the beginning and try each of the main fixes before doing anything else. The first thing you should do when you're having any kind of issue with a game, including crashing, is restarting your computer. Many an issue has been resolved simply by turning it off and back on again, clearing the system of anything that might be stuck in RAM or a blocked I/O that could be causing a problem. You're also going to want to make sure that your system at least meets the minimum specs to run the game. You're going to need Windows 10 or higher, and for the processor you should have at least an Intel Core i5-6400, an AMD Ryzen 5 1500X, or an equivalent CPU. You're going to want at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. For your graphics card, you will need at least an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 with 6 gigabytes of VRAM, an AMD Radeon RX 580 with at least 6 gigabytes of VRAM, or an Intel Arc A380. You can check your Windows version, CPU, and RAM by opening up your Windows settings. You'll click on System and then scroll down and click About. You can find out what GPU you have in the Device Manager. You type in Device Manager in the Windows search bar and then you can open it. Unfurl where it says Display Adapters by clicking the arrow next to it. Please note that if you have more than one GPU in there, it could be causing an issue in the game, including crashing, that I will discuss in depth later on in the video. To check your VRAM, you can right-click on your taskbar and bring up the Task Manager. Click on Performance and then on your GPU. Down at the bottom, it'll show you the VRAM of your GPU. You're specifically looking for the part that says Dedicated GPU Memory. If you find that your computer is under spec, it still may be possible to play the game. As long as you have a good internet connection, there are cloud gaming platforms like GeForce Now that basically allow you to use their computers to process the game and then stream it to your system. Next, you're going to want to check and see if your graphics drivers are up to date. Make sure to use the software that comes with your GPU and not Windows, as Windows generally doesn't install the most current version. For NVIDIA cards, this would either be through GeForce Experience or their new NVIDIA app. For AMD cards, this would be AMD's Adrenalin. And for Intel cards, it would be through the Intel Graphics Command Center. If you find that your graphic drivers are out of date, go ahead and update them and then check to see if the game runs without crashing. Next, you're going to want to verify your game files in Steam. To do this, you're going to open up your Steam library, right-click on Enshrouded in the list, and click Properties. Click on Installed Files to the left. In the main content, click on Verify the integrity of game files next to where it says Verify this game's files are installed correctly. Steam could take several moments to verify the files. If for some reason it comes up immediately, press the button again. If it found an issue, it'll download a small fix for it and install it. Whether it appeared to download anything or not, just jump in the game to see if you're having the same problems. If you are, move on to the next step. Another thing that you're going to want to do, and you probably want to do whether your game is crashing or not, is disable any of your overlays. Things like Steam, NVIDIA, Discord, or any other overlays actually can cause unexpected issues to occur in the game, including performance issues and crashing. For NVIDIA, this will either be in GeForce Experience or NVIDIA app, whichever one you have. For the NVIDIA app, it'll be located in the Settings on the Features tab. It should be similarly located in GeForce Experience. You can disable Steam's overlay in Enshrouded specifically by right-clicking on the game in your library list, selecting Properties, and under the General tab, toggling Enable Steam Overlay while in-game to off. You can also disable Steam's overlay in all games by going to Steam's main settings, navigating to In-Game, and toggling the setting there. To disable Discord's overlay, click the gear icon next to your name on the bottom left. Click Game Overlay, and at the top where it says Enable In-Game Overlay, toggle it to off. Check to see if this fixes your crashing issues. If not, it's time to move on to the next step. Now you want to check for possible world or character save corruptions, entity overload, or multiplayer issues. If you're crashing in multiplayer, start up or play a solo game to verify that this is happening in more than just your online games. If you're playing solo, start up a new game with a new character and see if the crashing persists. If in either of these scenarios you do not crash, it's possible that your world or character save was corrupted, or the world you're playing on has become too large due to extremely large builds, extreme amounts of planting, or an extreme amount of terraforming on your save. You can test a new character in an old world or an old character in a new world as well to narrow it down. With world saves, it may be possible to fix entity overload if you can stay in long enough to reduce the amount of buildings or crops, though with terraforming an altar may have to be removed. After that, you're going to want to run Liandry's Enshrouded Toolfix. This tool checks and fixes a lot of the common causes for crashing in the game, and is perfectly safe to use. Type PowerShell in the Windows search box, right-click on Windows PowerShell and click Run as Administrator. That's an important step. Type in this command into the window that pops up. I will put it in the description for you to be able to copy and paste. Once you hit Enter, it'll start the tool running. The tool will go through and check several common issues with the game, and check your install of Vulkan, clear your shader caches, and possibly modify your graphics settings. It will also prompt you to turn off or on Game DVR, which is a Windows background recording software. Unless you specifically use this software, I would suggest turning it off. Once the tool is completed, make sure to restart your PC. Start up the game and see if you're still having your crashing issue, and if you are, move on to the next step. If you're still having issues and you didn't get a pop-up for Vulkan when you ran the Enshrouded Toolfix, now is a good time to install the latest version. You can download the most current Vulkan runtime installer for Windows from the website I've put in the description below. You'll want to navigate to the website and download the runtime installer for Windows. You'll then want to open and install the software. Once installed, go ahead and restart your computer just to be safe, and then start up the game and see if this worked. The next thing you're going to want to try is renaming your Enshrouded local JSON file. To do this, open up your Steam library, right-click on Enshrouded in the list and go to Installed Files. At the top, click on Browse, and this should open up your Enshrouded install directory. Look for the file named Enshrouded Local JSON in the window that opens up. You're going to rename that file to anything you want. This JSON file is where your game stores all of the settings. Once the game loads without it, the game will create a new JSON file with the default settings. This can help fix issues where a certain setting might be causing you to crash or the file got corrupted in some way. It does not affect your game saves at all. Once you do this, start up the game and see if it works. If not, move on to the next step. Next, you're going to want to do a clean reinstall of the most current drivers using DDU. Even if you have the most current drivers, something could have happened to them during the download, causing an issue. You can use this software to completely remove your driver and its registry entries from your system, which will then ensure that the drivers you install are completely fresh. The first thing you're going to want to do is download the latest driver directly to your desktop from your GPU manufacturer's website. Don't install the driver or use an auto-detect and install tool, but have it there so you can access it easily once the DDU process is complete. You're going to want to download and install the DDU tool. I'll put a link to the program as well as links to the NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel in the description. Once you've downloaded, unzip and run the display driver uninstaller as administrator. If you're having problems downloading or running the software, I'll put a link to another video with more detailed instructions in the description. Once the app starts up, it'll give you an options menu. It's suggested to leave all the settings as they are and close it. The program will then suggest you reboot into safe mode and run it there. This is not required. Select the device GPU from the menu in the top right. If done correctly, it should then show your GPU manufacturer and change color to make sure you're uninstalling the correct one. If it's incorrect, you can manually select the GPU type from the drop-downs that show up on the top right. Once you have the correct GPU driver selected, select the option Clean and Restart from the top left, and DDU will begin the process. The process could take several minutes. Do not close the software or shut down your computer while it's running, and the program should automatically restart your system when it's complete. After your system restarts, run the driver you downloaded earlier and follow the instructions. Once the driver is completely installed, run the Enshrouded Toolfix again and restart your computer. Check to see if your issue has been resolved. If not, go ahead and move on to the next step. You can use GPU-Z or another monitoring software to diagnose any possible hardware or resource issues. Tools like GPU-Z can show better information on what could be causing specific crashes, including component overload, overheating, and memory consumption, as well as possible GPU or CPU throttling. You can download GPU-Z from the link in the description below. Once you install and open the program, go ahead and navigate to the Sensors tab. You can expand the window to include all of the items listed. Take note of how your system is performing before the game is run. If temperatures are already high when idle, there's likely a cooling issue. If you're using a large portion of your GPU memory or system memory, you're likely running out and need to close programs. Also make sure that the load isn't already high on your CPU and GPU. Once you've checked out what it looks like before the game is running, go ahead and start up the game and check it out. While the game is running, your GPU load should be above 80%, but if anything else is capping or spiking, that could be the cause of your crashes. Recheck the loads, memory, and temperatures while running the game. Also keep watch and check after your system crashes. Look for things that are capped or spiking right before the crash. These could give you some indication of what might be happening. If you notice in your monitoring software that your RAM or VRAM might be getting overloaded, or if your CPU is getting overloaded, it might be time to consider closing any software you don't need running, including background software. Any number of different programs can interact with drivers, Vulkan, shared files, or even the game directly. Some can even hog your system resources. To do this, go ahead and open up your Task Manager and click on Startup Apps in the left menu. Select any program that you do not need to be running for Windows or the game to run and disable it. If you aren't sure that a program is necessary, a quick Google search should tell you what it is and whether you need it. After you have disabled all but necessary apps, go ahead and restart your computer and do not load anything other than Steam and run your game. If your game stops crashing, you can go through the list one by one and bring things back up until you find the program that's causing the issue and disable it again. Sometimes it's necessary just to try and reinstall the game. Sometimes installs can get corrupted and the verification doesn't pick it up. If this happens, you're going to have to reinstall the game, and it's a good idea to also clear out Steam's download cache when you do this, as the corruption could have happened during the download of the game or even one of its patches. To do this, I would first uninstall your game, then open up Steam's settings and click on Downloads. Click the Clear Cache button to the right of where it says Clear Download Cache. After this, it's always a good idea to restart your computer just to make sure everything is fresh and clean, then you can go ahead and reinstall the game. It might even be worth it if you have another drive that you can put it on to go ahead and try and reinstall it to another different drive, just to see if maybe that makes a difference. If you've gotten this far and you're still having crashing issues, you might want to try rolling back your GPU drivers. As of this video, I don't think there are any known issues with any of the current GPU drivers in the game specifically, but there's always still a possibility of an interaction happening elsewhere and affecting the game. And while it's always best to have the most recent drivers available, when you're having issues that are being a pain to track down, rolling back drivers to a more stable version could help. To do this, you would follow the steps mentioned before using DDU. However, instead of downloading the most recent version of your GPU, you would search their site for legacy versions and download that before running DDU and install it after the restart. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, sometimes having multiple GPUs or integrated graphics cards can cause issues with the game. If you have more than one GPU listed in your device manager, it could be causing your crashing issues. Windows can take control of which GPU your system is using for various reasons and force the game to use it even after the game loads the correct GPU. Among several other reasons, what can happen is that the focus is pulled from your game for any reason, and even when focus is returned to the game, it may prioritize the Windows chosen GPU over your better GPU. This can also happen if Windows chooses to conserve power or when using multiple displays while playing the game. It is suggested that you disable any integrated graphics cards or under-spec secondary cards. To do this, open up Device Manager and unfurl the Display Adapters section. Right-click on the integrated or secondary GPU and click Disable. Do not do this if you only have one GPU listed. Restart your system to make sure that it takes effect and then check to see if you still have the crashing issues. You will also want to make sure that your monitor is connected to the proper GPU if possible, as many games will prefer using the GPU that the monitor is connected to. Another thing you might want to try is disabling Windows Game Mode, especially on lower-end systems. In certain situations, notably older or lower-end systems, Windows Game Mode can cause performance issues and even sometimes crashing. Game mode is Windows' way of prioritizing games. However, with lower-end systems, it can sometimes overload the GPU and cause it to crash. There can also be conflicts with drivers, hardware, or other issues. Game mode is really only useful for mid-range gaming systems, so high-end systems won't notice any performance changes. Mid-range systems might notice a slight decrease in performance, though. It can also interfere with other game optimization software like GeForce Experience, too. Turning game mode off doesn't have any horribly negative effects, but you may notice notifications popping up where they didn't before. To turn it off, open up Windows Settings, click on Gaming in the left column, and then Game Mode in the content box. At the top, there will be an option to turn off game mode. Some cards that have factory overclock can sometimes have issues with crashing. So it might be worth it if your GPU has a factory overclock to go ahead and enable debug mode. To do this, you'll open up your NVIDIA control panel, click on Help in the top menu bar, and click on Debug Mode. Once you've done this, start up the game and see if your crashing persists. As of the making of this video, the only software that I know of that may have conflicts is GPU Tweak 3. Users have reported that the Asus software GPU Tweak 3 can result in the game being completely unable to launch. Clicking the play button has no impact. Disabling this software seems to fix the issue. The team at Keen has been alerted and is currently investigating the issue. It's possible that by the time this video is released, there might not even be an issue with the software anymore. I hope you have found this video helpful and that you were able to fix your crashing issue. However, if you still need help, go ahead and join us in the official Discord in the link below. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day.